I'm Gracie, Policy and Parliamentary Officer with Child Poverty Action Group in Scotland. Child poverty in Scotland is rising. Currently 1 in 4 children in Scotland are living in poverty, which is around 240,000. Scottish Government projections, however, show that almost a third of children will be living in poverty by 2032. Importantly, those projections are based on UK Government tax and benefit reforms, which is really why we're seeing the rise in child poverty. A CPAG IPPR report in 2017 outlined that more than 1 million children will be pushed into poverty as a result of cuts to universal credit alone. So when social security at its most basic is meant to be a safety net, why are we seeing it pushing families into hardship? Well, basically it was a series of policy decisions. Introduction of policies like the benefit cap, the freeze and the 2-child limit mean that families are increasingly being pushed into poverty in the UK. There were things to be vaguely impressed and interested about when universal credit was first announced. It was to be the simplification of what is a fairly complicated tax credit system. However, a series of decisions over time have meant that it's now having an overwhelmingly negative impact on poverty across the UK. And we know that it's families who are most acutely affected by that. In fact, it's groups and families who are already at the highest risk of poverty who are worst off. So families who, for example, might be larger families, might be single parent families, or with a disabled family member are likely to be hardest hit by welfare reform. These, if you think about it, are the families who are least able to be flexible. So you're least able to perhaps pick up more hours at work or take on extra training in order to increase your income. However, you certainly don't have any fewer living costs than anyone else. And we know that the impact of these reforms is going to be significant across Scotland. Around 11,000 households in Scotland will be impacted by the benefit cap. And the impact of living in poverty on families is huge. We know that fundamentally it means that you don't have access to the same living conditions that are generally taken as the norm in society. We know that it excludes children from things that their peers take for granted. It affects your physical and mental health, and fundamentally it affects your life chances. So what we need is to be pursuing the right policies when it comes to social security. This week, CPAG and IPPR produced a report which set out the costs of reversing some of the recent cuts to social security across the UK. In this, we outline a package of reforms which would lift 700,000 children across the UK out of poverty. Within this package, we suggest removing the benefit cap and the 2-child limit, as well as topping up child benefit by £5 a week. The cost of this package as a whole would be around £8.5 billion, but that, while significant, is a tiny fraction of the £40 billion which is the result of cuts to social security across the UK. So we can see how policy impacts both negatively and positively on poverty and families in Scotland. But poverty isn't inevitable. We have seen from the mid-1990s through to 2012 a real increase in progress in tackling child poverty in Scotland. That was because the right social security policies were pursued and there was a real and clear political commitment. We need to see that political commitment from government at all levels if we're going to tackle child poverty in Scotland, meet our statutory child poverty targets, and make sure that we don't reach those horrendous projections for child poverty in Scotland.